One line on a map, 70 years of silence. Two nations that were once a single people. But what if, tomorrow, the border simply vanished? What if North and South Korea became one country again, overnight? Would the world gain its next great superpower, or witness the most expensive experiment in modern history? This is What If Korea Reunited. Imagine waking up tomorrow morning and checking your phone, only to see one headline repeated by every major news organization on Earth. North Korea and South Korea have officially reunited. The border that has divided millions of people for more than 70 years is gone. Soldiers who once stood face to face are lowering their weapons. Families separated for generations are finally embracing one another. And one of the world's most secretive nations has suddenly opened its doors. At first, it sounds like the perfect ending to one of history's longest conflicts. But within hours, global stock markets begin to fluctuate. World leaders call emergency meetings. Military commanders across Asia are placed on high alert. Investors rush to predict what this new Korea could become. Because while reunification would be an incredible moment for millions of people, it could also become the biggest political and economic experiment of the 21st century. Would a united Korea become an unstoppable global superpower? Or would it collapse under the weight of two completely different worlds trying to become one? Today, we're going to find out. For thousands of years, the Korean Peninsula was home to a single civilization. People shared the same language, the same traditions, the same culture, the same history. But after World War II, everything changed. The peninsula was divided into two occupation zones. The Soviet Union controlled the north. The United States controlled the south. What was originally meant to be a temporary division slowly became permanent. Then, in 1950, war erupted. The Korean War lasted just 3 years, but its consequences have lasted for more than 7 decades. Millions of people died. Entire cities were destroyed. Families were separated forever. And when the fighting finally stopped, there wasn't even a peace treaty. Technically, North Korea and South Korea are still at war today. Between them lies one of the most heavily fortified borders on Earth, the Demilitarized Zone, better known as the DMZ. Ironically, despite its name, it is one of the most militarized places anywhere in the world. On one side stands one of the richest and most technologically advanced countries in Asia. On the other stands one of the most isolated nations on Earth. For more than 70 years, these two countries have evolved in completely opposite directions. Now imagine taking these two nations and asking them to become one overnight. South Korea has become an economic powerhouse. It is home to global companies like Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and Kia. Its cities are filled with towering skyscrapers. Its internet is among the fastest in the world. Its universities rank among Asia's best. Its citizens enjoy one of the highest standards of living on the continent. Meanwhile, North Korea followed a completely different path. Its economy remains heavily controlled by the government. Many roads remain underdeveloped. Power shortages are common. Access to information from the outside world is extremely limited. One of the most striking images ever taken from space perfectly illustrates this difference. At night, South Korea shines with millions of lights. North Korea is almost completely dark. Just one border separates two dramatically different realities. Yet despite all those differences, the people still speak the same language. They still share many traditions, and countless families remain separated by a border they never chose, which raises an extraordinary question. If reunification actually happened, what would the very first day look like? The announcement comes at exactly 9 o'clock in the morning. Government officials from both sides confirm that reunification agreements have been signed. Within minutes, every television network interrupts its programming. Breaking news banners appear across the globe. Financial markets react instantly. Some investors believe a united Korea could become one of the world's strongest economies. Others fear an economic shock, unlike anything seen in decades. Governments around the world immediately begin emergency meetings. The United States, China, Japan, Russia. Every major power understands that this moment could reshape the balance of power in Asia. Airlines prepare for a sudden surge in international travel. Journalists race towards Seoul. Television crews set up outside government buildings. Social media explodes with reactions from every corner of the world. But the most emotional scenes aren't taking place inside government offices. They're happening inside ordinary homes. Thousands of elderly Koreans suddenly realize something they never believed they would witness in their lifetime. They may finally see their brothers, their sisters, their parents, or their children. Some families haven't spoken to one another since the early 1950s. Others have never even seen a recent photograph of their relatives. For these people, reunification isn't about politics. It isn't about economics. It isn't about military strategy. It's about finally coming home. As the day continues, the border slowly begins to open. For decades, crossing it had been almost impossible. Now the first vehicles begin moving through. Humanitarian workers arrive. Medical teams follow. Construction engineers enter. Electricity specialists begin assessing the power grid. Food suppliers organize massive deliveries. Internet and telecommunications experts prepare to connect millions of people who have lived in two completely different information systems. The biggest logistical operation of the century has officially begun. Because reunification isn't as simple as removing a fence. North Korea and South Korea don't just have different governments, they have different laws, different currencies, different banking systems, different school systems, different healthcare systems, different transportation networks, different communication systems. Even everyday life has developed in completely different ways. Almost every institution would need to be redesigned from the ground up. Imagine trying to merge two countries that have spent more than 70 years growing apart. Now imagine doing it while the entire world watches every decision. And that's when the first major challenge appears. It isn't politics. It isn't the military. It isn't diplomacy. It's money. An unbelievable amount of money. Because rebuilding North Korea could become one of the most expensive projects in human history. And that's where our story is only beginning. The celebrations would barely have time to begin before reality sets in. Because reunification wouldn't just be about opening a border. It would be about rebuilding an entire country. And that comes with an almost unimaginable price tag. Experts have debated this question for decades. How much would it actually cost to modernize North Korea? No one knows for certain, but many estimates range from hundreds of billions to several trillion dollars, depending on how quickly the process happens and how ambitious the reconstruction becomes. To understand why, imagine buying an old house. Now imagine that instead of replacing a roof or renovating a kitchen, you have to rebuild almost everything. Roads, railways, power plants, hospitals, schools, airports, water systems, internet infrastructure, banks, factories, entire cities. That is the scale of the challenge, and someone has to pay for it. Most economists believe that burden would fall primarily on South Korea. For decades, South Koreans have enjoyed one of the highest standards of living in Asia. Their economy ranks among the largest in the world. Companies like Samsung, Hyundai, LG, and SK Group are global giants. But even for an economy this strong, absorbing the cost of reunification would be a massive undertaking. Taxes would almost certainly increase. Government spending would surge. Public debt could rise dramatically. Many South Koreans would likely support reunification emotionally. After all, millions of people still view those in the North as family. But when the financial reality becomes clear, opinions could become divided. Some would argue that reunification is a historic responsibility. Others would worry about paying the bill for decades. Germany offers an interesting comparison. When East and West Germany reunified in 1990, West Germany invested enormous sums to modernize the East. Even today, more than 3 decades later, economic differences still exist. Now imagine a gap far larger than the one Germany faced. North Korea has been isolated for generations. Its economy is dramatically smaller. Its infrastructure is much less developed. The challenge would be unlike anything seen in modern history. But here's the surprising part. While the short-term costs would be enormous, the long-term benefits could be just as extraordinary. Because North Korea isn't just a country in need of investment, it's also a country full of untapped potential. Beneath its mountains lie significant deposits of iron ore, coal, rare earth elements, gold, zinc, and other valuable minerals. Many of these resources remain largely undeveloped. Why? Because North Korea lacks the capital, technology, and international partnerships needed to fully exploit them. Now imagine combining those resources with South Korea's advanced technology, engineering expertise, and access to global markets. Suddenly, the equation begins to change. Factories could be built, mines could be modernized, exports could increase, millions of new jobs could be created. Entire regions that have remained economically stagnant for decades might finally begin to grow. But resources alone don't create prosperity. Infrastructure does. One of the first priorities would be transportation. Today, rail connections between North and South Korea are extremely limited. A unified Korea could completely redesign its transportation network. Imagine high-speed trains leaving Busan in the south, passing through Seoul, continuing across Pyongyang, and eventually connecting to China's rail system. From there, goods could travel across Central Asia and all the way into Europe. For the first time in generations, the Korean Peninsula could become a major land bridge between East Asia and the rest of Eurasia. That would dramatically reduce shipping times for many products currently transported by sea. Companies around the world would take notice. International investors would begin pouring money into infrastructure projects. Construction companies would compete for contracts worth billions of dollars. The world's largest engineering firms would arrive almost immediately. But while businesses see opportunity, another group would face a completely different reality. The people of North Korea. For generations, many North Koreans have lived under one of the world's most isolated political systems. Suddenly, millions of people would be exposed to a completely different way of life. Modern shopping centers, open internet access, international brands, freedom to travel, social media, foreign films, independent news. For many, the experience would be overwhelming. Imagine spending your entire life inside one system, then waking up the next day in another. The cultural adjustment would be enormous. Schools would have to rewrite textbooks. Teachers would need new training. Television and media would change almost overnight. Businesses would begin hiring workers from the north, but many would require extensive training to prepare for modern industries. Some people would adapt quickly. Others might struggle. The differences between daily life in the north and south have grown over more than 70 years. Rebuilding roads may take years. Rebuilding trust could take even longer. And then comes one of the biggest questions of all. What happens to the military? North Korea maintains one of the largest standing armies in the world. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers, thousands of artillery pieces, missiles, military bases spread across the country, and of course, nuclear weapons. No issue would receive more international attention than this one. Would a unified Korea keep those weapons? Would they be dismantled? Who would control them during the transition? The United States would demand answers. China would demand answers. Japan would demand answers. Russia would demand answers. Because a unified Korea wouldn't just affect Koreans, it would reshape the balance of power across the entire Asia-Pacific region. And that means the next chapter of our story isn't just about Korea anymore. It's about the rest of the world. Because the moment Korea reunites, every major global power has a decision to make. Whose side will the new Korea be on? And the answer to that question could change the future of Asia forever. The moment reunification became official, the world's attention would shift from the Korean Peninsula to the offices of four governments: Washington, Beijing, Tokyo, and Moscow. Because while Korea would celebrate a historic milestone, every major power would immediately begin asking the same question: what happens next? For decades, the Korean Peninsula has been one of the most strategically important places on Earth. It's located between China, Japan, and Russia, while hosting thousands of American troops in the south. A unified Korea would completely reshape that balance. The United States would likely welcome a peaceful reunification. For decades, Washington has supported South Korea as one of its closest allies in Asia. But reunification would create an entirely new situation. Would American troops remain stationed in Korea? Or would a newly unified government ask them to leave? If Korea became fully independent in its defense strategy, the United States could lose one of its most important military positions in East Asia. At the same time, China would be watching every decision with extreme caution. China shares a border with North Korea. For years, North Korea has acted as a buffer between China and U.S. allied South Korea. If reunification brought the entire peninsula closer to the United States, China would almost certainly see it as a major strategic concern. On the other hand, if the new Korea adopted a neutral foreign policy, maintaining good relations with both Washington and Beijing, tensions could actually decrease. Everything would depend on the decisions made by the new government. Japan would also have mixed feelings. Economically, a stable and prosperous Korea would be an excellent trading partner. Politically and strategically, however, Japan might suddenly find itself living next to an even stronger competitor. Imagine a country with South Korea's technology, North Korea's natural resources, a population of more than 77 million people, and one of the best educated workforces in the world. That combination could create one of the most competitive economies on Earth. Russia would also pay close attention. Although its border with North Korea is relatively short, reunification could create new trade opportunities linking Russia, Korea, and the rest of Asia. Rail connections between Europe and the Korean Peninsula could become far more practical than ever before. For global trade, this could be revolutionary. Today, most cargo from South Korea travels by sea. Ships cross busy waterways before reaching Europe or other major markets. But with an open land connection through North Korea, entirely new trade corridors could emerge. Imagine freight trains leaving Busan, traveling through Seoul, passing into northern Korea, crossing China, connecting to Central Asia, and eventually arriving in Europe. The Korean Peninsula would no longer be the end of the railway. It would become one of the world's most important transportation hubs. That alone could attract hundreds of billions of dollars in new investment. But perhaps the biggest question of all still remains unanswered. What happens to North Korea's nuclear weapons? This issue would dominate international diplomacy from day one. A unified Korea would inherit one of the world's most controversial nuclear arsenals. Some leaders would argue that every nuclear weapon should be dismantled immediately. Others would believe that keeping a nuclear deterrent would strengthen Korea's security. The decision would shape international relations for decades. Negotiations could take years. International inspectors would likely be involved. The United Nations would almost certainly play a major role. And every major world power would closely monitor the process. But beyond military strategy and diplomacy lies something even more important: the people. For over 70 years, millions of Koreans have grown up in completely different societies. Children in Seoul and children in Pyongyang have learned different versions of history, different political systems, different ideas about the world, different daily routines. Reunification wouldn't erase those differences overnight. It would take years, perhaps even generations, for the country to fully integrate. Some North Koreans would move south in search of jobs. Some South Korean companies would open factories in the north. Universities would welcome students from both regions. Families separated for decades would finally begin rebuilding relationships. Some reunions would be joyful, others would be heartbreaking. Many relatives would discover that the people they remembered had changed completely. Some would never have the chance to reunite at all. For countless families, 70 years was simply too long. Even so, one thing would become undeniable. The Korean Peninsula would never be the same again. Fast forward 20 years. Imagine boarding a high-speed train in Busan. Hours later, you're having dinner in Pyongyang. The next morning, you're crossing into China. The border that once symbolized division has become a gateway connecting continents. Cities in northern Korea have transformed. Modern apartment buildings stand where aging infrastructure once dominated. Universities collaborate with institutions around the world. Technology companies expand into new regions. Tourists visit places that were once completely inaccessible. The world has gained an entirely new destination. Economically, the results begin to speak for themselves. The early years were expensive, very expensive. Taxes increased, government spending reached record levels. Some economists even questioned whether reunification had been a mistake. But over time, infrastructure improved, productivity increased, investment poured in. The gap between North and South slowly began to shrink. It wasn't easy. It wasn't quick, but it worked. Would a united Korea become the richest country in Asia? Probably not overnight. Would it surpass economic giants like the United States or China? Almost certainly not. But could it become one of the world's most influential economies? Absolutely. With advanced technology, valuable natural resources, world-class manufacturing, and a strategic location connecting East Asia to the rest of Eurasia, a unified Korea could become one of the defining economic powers of the 21st century. Of course, this entire scenario depends on something incredibly difficult: a peaceful reunification. In reality, political differences, security concerns, economic costs, and international tensions make reunification one of the most complex challenges on Earth. It isn't impossible, but it would require extraordinary diplomacy, trust, and cooperation from every side involved. Still, history has surprised us before. Few people expected the Berlin Wall to fall when it did. Few believed Germany would reunify so quickly. The future has a way of changing when the world least expects it. So, could Korea reunite one day? Perhaps. Would it be difficult? Without question. Would it change the world? Almost certainly. Because this wouldn't just be the story of two countries becoming one. It would be the story of millions of families finally reconnecting, of one of history's last great divisions coming to an end, and of a new chapter beginning for an entire region. The map of Asia would never look the same again. But what do you think? Would a united Korea become an economic superpower? Or would the challenges simply be too great to overcome? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed exploring this alternate future, don't forget to like and subscribe, because next time, we're asking another question that could completely change the map of our world.